Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Destiny and I love to upcycle furniture. I picked this table up from my local thrift store for $15. Personally, I overpaid for it, but I fell in love with the handles and the cute rolly feet. The top was pretty beat up and the drawer was broken, but nothing we can't fix. I'm going to start this piece by taking off the hardware so it can be properly cleaned. This table was so dusty, it was absolutely disgusting. After I got a majority of the dust up with the vacuum, I began to wipe the piece down with a rag and some warm soapy water. And guys, watch how dirty this water gets. It's so gross. I've seen this happen a time or two, but never to this degree. What is happening here? Is this a failing finish? Is this dirt? If you know, please tell me. Next, I started to sand down the top, and I started with a 120 grit, but I quickly realized that it just was not going quick enough, so I got an 80 grit and just went to work. When you're using a super low grit of sandpaper, you want to make sure that you go very slowly and don't apply pressure because you'll leave swirly marks in your wood. This video is sped up to ×20, but it took me about 20 minutes to completely sand down the top. Next, I'm going over it again with a 120 grit sandpaper, and this is just to get the remaining finish off and smooth it down, and then I will finish with a 220 sanding grit. I knew that I wanted to keep the rolling wheels because I just thought they looked so cool, and I wanted to take them off so that I could get them cleaned and shined up, but I could not get this nail out for the life of me, and I was just scratching it, so I just decided to leave them on as is. And I'm not sure what I was thinking at this time, but I decided to tape them up. What I should have done was clean them before I painted, but you'll see that later on in the video. Again, I don't know what I was thinking. I clearly wasn't. Next, I'm going to make my drawer repair, and I'm going to use Gorilla wood glue. Next, I'm using a 220 grit sandpaper just to scuff sand the piece and to remove any of the failing finish. Anywhere I couldn't get the sander, I sanded by hand, also with a 220 grit sandpaper. Personally, I think this is the worst part about furniture flipping. I hate sanding, but it is extremely necessary if you want your paint to stick properly. In my original idea, I wanted to stain the entire top, but I noticed they were two different kinds of woods, and I didn't really want to fuss with that, so I ended up just painting this part. At this point, I get super excited because I'm done sanding and I'm just wiping all of the sanding dust back. That way we can start on the fun parts like painting and staining. And this part is just as important because if you tried to spray your paint onto the wood dust, it would not stick. Early American Stain is my favorite stain color to use, but this is where I realized that it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't the right color. But I just keep going and I stain the whole top, and I'm not sure why, because at the end I didn't love it. But I wanted to love it because it is my favorite stain color to use, so I just kept going. So then I was like, oh, why not just put a darker stain over it? Maybe that will give you the look that you're going for. Nope, it didn't. And what did I do? I just kept staining it. I just kept going. Oh, would you look at that? We're still staining. And you know what? I think it's pretty, but it just wasn't the look that I was going for. So I just walk away from it and I let it dry overnight, and then I sanded it down again. Also, if you know what kind of wood this is, please tell me because it's very, very pretty. After I finished sanding, I took a tack cloth and I'm just wiping over the entire tabletop just to get all of the sanding debris out. And after all that work, I just needed a break from the top, so I just decided to tape it off with some paper, and I'm going to paint instead. And I'm going to cover my drawer with paper also so that I don't get paint overspray on it. Next, I'm using Kiehl's 2 All-Purpose Primer. I've used this primer, I don't know, 2 or 3 other times, and it works fairly well. The coverage is really good for the first coat. And I always start on a piece of cardboard. That way, if my settings are wrong, I'm not messing up on my furniture. I'm just messing up on the cardboard. And I spray 2 coats of primer, and in between the coats I sand with a 400 grit sandpaper. I've heard some people like to sand with 220, but I personally think it leaves too many scratch marks. That's why I use 400. This is my favorite part. I love painting. I picked up this Valspar color sample at my local hardware store for $2. It's this beautiful, beautiful blue-green color. I think it's going to be perfect. And I like to add just a little bit of water to thin out my paint. That way it goes through my spray gun very easily. This table took 2.5 coats of paint for full coverage, and in between the coats I sanded with 400 grit sandpaper. After I was done painting, it was time to think about the top again. And honestly, I still was not exactly sure what I was going for with this look. So I started with sanding off the paint that came through the tape. So then I caved and I decided to try a water-based stain. I was reading a lot of reviews, and a lot of people suggested to spray water down on the surface before you apply stain, just to make it spread a little easier. And it worked very well, in my opinion. But I found that you don't need a whole lot, otherwise the coverage is just not that great. I've mentioned in a previous video that I personally like oil stains better, and that's still very much the case. A water base just doesn't give you that richness. This is the first coat after it's dried. It's still not what I was going for, so I'm going to go ahead and apply a second coat. Next, I am working on cleaning the hardware, and I'm just using Barkeeper's Friend and some warm water. This hardware was so dirty that this process took forever, but I'm very happy with how they turned out. And for the last big step, I'm using Minwax polyacrylic for my top coat. Just kidding. I forgot that I still had to clean the feet, so I untaped everything and I used the same thing that I used to clean the hardware, just some Barkeeper's Friend, applied it, and then scrubbed it. Also, I know that I should have cleaned this before I painted it, so don't come at me, please, and thank you. In my opinion, from what they were, I think they turned out really great. What do you think? This drawer is not real wood, at least the bottom of it is not real wood, and it looks really bad. So I just decided to line it with some wallpaper. Here is one last look of the before. And here is the after. I am still a huge fan of the knobs and the wheels. I think they're so cute. I hope that I've earned your subscription today, and don't forget to like and leave a comment. It helps small channels like mine grow. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!